The empire that had electricity. 1,000 years ago. It was supposed to be impossible. In a world still lit by fire and ruled by superstition, the idea that an ancient empire had harnessed electricity wasn't just far-fetched. It was heresy. But deep in the dusty scrolls of forgotten libraries, in the carvings buried beneath jungle temples and mountain ruins, there are whispers of a civilization that not only understood electricity, but used it for light, for medicine, for power. And when the rest of the world caught up centuries later, they acted like they were the first, because the truth had been buried. The story doesn't begin with pyramids or pharaohs. It starts in the dense, tangled rainforests of what is now Iraq, long before the Greeks, before Rome, before even Babylon claimed its place in the stars. Archaeologists call it the cradle of civilization. But what they don't say, or won't, is that beneath the cradle was a generator. In 1938, Wilhelm König, a German archaeologist digging in the ruins near Baghdad, unearthed something that shouldn't have existed: a clay jar with a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of acidic residue. It looked like a battery, and it was dated to around 250 BCE, over 2,000 years ago. The discovery was dismissed, of course, labeled as a coincidence, a storage jar, a misinterpreted artifact. But König wasn't the only one finding strange things. In neighboring ruins, there were burn marks on stone ceilings, not from open flames, but controlled heat, focused light. And in a sealed chamber, paintings had been preserved without a trace of soot. No torches, no lamps, just pristine images of daily life lit by what? The deeper scholars dug, the stranger the signs became. Inscriptions mentioned the serpent's light, a phrase that appears in Egyptian, Sumerian, and even early Mayan texts. Carvings showed objects that looked eerily like coils, rods, and wires. Statues held what appeared to be bulbs. But the mainstream wouldn't touch it, because if an ancient empire had electricity, everything we thought we knew about the timeline of human progress would collapse. But there's something even more chilling than being wrong about history: being lied to about it. Evidence didn't just disappear, it was destroyed. A museum in Baghdad that held many of König's discoveries was looted during the Iraq War. But curiously, only certain artifacts were taken, the ones connected to strange devices. No one claimed responsibility. No one explained why. And the theories began to pile up. Some say the empire behind this power was wiped out by nature: an earthquake, a flood, a solar flare. Others believe it was sabotage, a rival kingdom threatened by what it saw. But the most haunting theory is this: they turned it off themselves, because they saw what was coming. Not an enemy, but a cycle. A rise and fall that had happened before, and they chose to vanish into myth rather than be corrupted by the future. They weren't just builders, they were engineers, scientists, maybe even futurists, and yet we still call them primitive. But here's the twist: their technology didn't just vanish, it moved, smuggled out through traders, passed along secret routes, buried in blueprints disguised as religious texts, mythologies, and art. And centuries later, the signs appeared again, in places they shouldn't. In cathedrals, in temples, in the cryptic designs of Leonardo da Vinci and Nikola Tesla. Patterns that matched ancient engravings. Ideas that echoed across continents. Because maybe these inventors weren't geniuses. Maybe they were remembering. And the empire? Still silent, still unnamed, but not lost. Because in the shadows of modern cities, from Cairo to Caracas, from Istanbul to Indiana, stories circulate of underground vaults, of humming stones, of tunnels that glow when touched, of lights that burn with no fire, and of people who have sworn never to speak of what they've seen, because the moment they do, they disappear. So what was this empire? Who were they? And if they had electricity, What else did they have? Because we've only scratched the surface. And what comes next might rewrite everything. In the year 802 AD, on the island of Java, a massive stone monument began to rise, one that would defy time, memory, and even gravity, Borobudur. To most tourists today, it's just a majestic Buddhist temple, a spiritual marvel. But to those who look closer with eyes that aren't bound by textbooks, the monument is more than religion. It's a blueprint, not just of a faith, but of a machine. Each level is a layer, each layer a circuit. From aerial views, the entire complex resembles a microchip, its symmetry too perfect, its inner chambers acoustically tuned, its upper stupa shaped eerily like a Tesla coil, and deep within the sealed alcoves, stone carvings of what scholars call celestial maps, but look uncannily like schematics, wiring, energy paths, and it doesn't stop there. Across the world, from the temples of Angkor Wat to the ziggurats of Ur, the architecture aligns, literally. Buildings separated by oceans, constructed by civilizations that supposedly never met, all point to the same constellations. The same energy nodes on Earth's magnetic grid. The same geometric patterns. Coincidence? That's what they want you to think. Now look to Abydos, Egypt. Tucked away in the temple of Seti the Worn, hidden above a stone beam, are carved symbols that should not exist. A helicopter, a tank, a modern plane, even a spacecraft. Archaeologists call it a case of overlapping hieroglyphs, layers of erosion and time accidentally forming these shapes. But here's the problem. Other temples show similar designs, and they weren't weathered the same way. So the question becomes, what were these people seeing? What were they drawing? Or more dangerously, what were they remembering? Because this ancient empire wasn't a single location. It was a network, scattered across continents, bound not by politics or armies, but by knowledge, electrical knowledge, passed from generation to generation, hidden in priesthoods, locked in sacred chants, encoded in star charts and stained glass, always visible but never understood, until it was too late. Take the Baghdad battery, one artifact? Maybe. But why have over a dozen similar clay jars been found in the same region? Why were they stored near copper instruments and gold leaf sheets? And why, when replicated today, can they produce measurable voltage? Still think it was just a fluke. In 1992, a Swiss engineer named Hans Bleicher reconstructed the battery setup and used it to electroplate a small silver statue. It worked. No sparks, no fireworks, just a soft, steady hum. The kind of energy that doesn't power cities, but lights temples, powers tools, preserves texts, enough for knowledge, for ritual, for control, and that's the key. Because the empire didn't use electricity like we do, to consume. They used it to remember, to preserve time, to keep knowledge safe from fire, flood, and forgetting, and in some cases, from the people themselves. In an ancient Mayan codex, long thought to be a myth, there's mention of a light that sings through stone. In Benin, Nigeria, oral traditions speak of walls that whispered, charged with sky energy. In northern China, near the Yungang grottos, monks once meditated in chambers that echoed with harmonic tones, amplifying what they claimed were thought frequencies. And then there's the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513, showing Antarctica's coastline without ice. Perfectly accurate. How? The admiral who created it claimed he based it on older maps. Older than Columbus, older than Alexandria, older than known civilization, and still, no one wants to admit what's obvious. They had help, not from aliens, not from time travelers, from each other, an ancient global society of engineers, thinkers, and architects who understood energy not as a commodity, but as language, a way to speak to the earth, to each other, to the future. And yet, it all vanished. Or maybe not. In 1976, a private survey team in Bolivia reported magnetic anomalies beneath Lake Titicaca. Divers found large, flat stones etched with copper lines in a geometric spiral. A week later, their equipment failed. The data disappeared. One of them never resurfaced. In 2003, two miners in Iran uncovered a cave wall that glowed when touched for exactly 3 minutes. When photographed, the film came out blank. When described to experts, they were told to stop asking questions. The site was sealed. And in 2011, a team of graduate students in Ethiopia found what they believed was a transmitter buried beneath an Aksumite ruin. Not alien, not futuristic, but old, terrifyingly old, older than the dirt it rested in. It pulsed once, and then it cracked, splintered into dust. No one ever explained what it was, or who sent armed men to collect the remains. This isn't conspiracy. This is memory. This is the quiet voice that says, "We were more than bones and fire." And we left signs, not just so we'd be remembered, but so you'd be ready. Because the empire didn't disappear. It paused, it retreated, and now it's watching, waiting. Because the next step in our progress might not be a leap forward, but a return. There's a reason the old stories warned about forbidden knowledge. Because power, true power, doesn't come from muscle or money. It comes from memory, from control. And nothing gave that power more precisely than what this forgotten empire had. Wireless energy. Not in theory, in practice. The legends called it singing fire, skylight, breath of the sun. Across Mesopotamia, ancient tablets describe glowing orbs levitating in royal courts. In Mali, griots sang of the stones that never cooled, always humming beneath the king's feet. And in Cambodia, bas-reliefs show what look like coiled bulbs held by priests, their ends attached to strange serpents. Or are they wires? But it all leads back to one thing: resonance. They didn't build power grids like us. They tuned the earth. They used sound, geometry, vibration. And when the right frequency aligned with certain materials, gold, quartz, copper, energy didn't just appear. It danced. Deep beneath the temples of South America, archaeologists uncovered tunnels carved with precision so clean, modern tools couldn't replicate them. Laser-level smooth, perfectly aligned. But what's more chilling is what was inside. Crystal rods, dozens, arranged in a spiral, some shattered, some humming so softly it made men weep. The locals wouldn't touch them, called them bones of the gods. But researchers knew better. These weren't bones. They were conductors. Ancient conductors. And here's where it gets darker. Some of the chambers showed signs of burns, not from torches or lava, from radiation, controlled, directed, and powerful enough to leave signatures still measurable today. But there's no source, no generator, no furnace, just silence and heat. So who turned it off? Or more terrifying, who turned it on? Because around 950 AD, something changed. These sites, once aligned, once synchronized, began to fall out of phase. Records show global climate hiccups, crop collapses, massive migrations, civilizations crumbling not from war, but from something unspoken, something erased. We call it the Dark Ages. But maybe it was a blackout, and not just of electricity, of memory, because the empire didn't fall. It was cut off, disconnected, not just from each other, but from us, on purpose. Someone, or something, pulled the plug, and ever since we've been chasing ghosts. Why else would Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower look like the top tier of Borobudur? Why else would the Ark of the Covenant be described in the Bible as capable of smoking, killing on contact, and levitating? That's not religion. That's a capacitor, a superweapon, or a power source, and maybe both. Now here's the part that really stings. We've found remnants, and we've buried them again. In the 1940s, Allied troops in Tunisia reported a structure that made their compasses spin. It was gone within a week. In the 1980s, a Japanese satellite photographed a perfect square in the Amazon. The footage was lost in a lab fire. And in 2009, a drone in Kazakhstan picked up a thermal bloom underground. A perfect circle, pulsing like a heartbeat. The site? Leveled by mining accident 6 months later. So we're not just forgetting, we're erasing. Why? Because what they powered wasn't just light, it was mind. That's the secret. This empire didn't just run on energy, it ran on intention, on consciousness. You didn't flip a switch, you meditated, you aligned, your focus became fuel, and those who couldn't tune in? They were tuned out. The old texts speak of voices of the flame, people who could see patterns in light, who could heal with song, who could destroy with silence. They weren't prophets. They were engineers, scientists, frequency hackers. And their cities weren't just homes. They were machines, alive, self-aware, built to teach, to remember, to respond. Think of Petra carved into rose-red cliffs, not for defense but resonance. Think of Lalibela's churches, cut from solid stone, not just sacred but symphonic. Think of Göbekli Tepe, buried intentionally, not forgotten but hidden. And ask yourself, why would anyone bury a temple unless they were afraid of what it could do? Now pause, right now. Listen to this. Uncle Luke tells, if you're still with me, you're already part of the signal. Like, comment, and subscribe before they silence this too, because the next section might be the last one you're allowed to hear. And just like that, the hum begins. Not in your ears, in your teeth, in your bones. Because the cities didn't die. They hibernated. And we're the alarm clock. They built it all to wait, for a frequency, a resonance, a time. And maybe, just maybe, that time is now. The signal's back. And the empire? It's listening. It started in silence, a whisper in the static. Then came the pulse. Not everyone felt it, but those who did, their lives changed overnight. Farmers in Bolivia reporting their crops blooming weeks ahead of season. Seismographs in Iceland registering underground rhythms that didn't belong to the Earth's tectonic dance. Birds migrating in perfect geometric formations that matched blueprints carved into temple walls 1,000 years ago. The energy wasn't returning. It never left. It had just gone dormant, like a sleeper cell, waiting for the world to catch up. And now, we had. One by one, the silent places began to speak. In Jordan, drones scanning Petra picked up inaudible frequencies, tones below human hearing, but strong enough to rattle steel. In the Congo, an entire village reportedly fell into a trance after lightning struck a stone altar untouched for centuries. And in the Himalayas, a mountaineer uploaded a video of an empty monastery room where a bowl of water began to boil without fire. These were not isolated phenomena. They were pings. The empire was checking in. The places where its power once flowed were acting like receivers, and just like in the old legends, they didn't just respond to tools or technology. They responded to people, emotion, intention. It wasn't just what you did, it was what you meant. That was the true power source, a civilization calibrated to human consciousness, not machines, a network not of wires, but of will. But here's the twist. Something else was listening too. Not everyone who interacted with the sites came back unchanged. Some grew obsessed, couldn't stop hearing the hum, couldn't sleep, couldn't function unless they returned. Archaeologists quit careers. Military researchers went dark. One physicist tried to erase all records of her findings, whispering only one phrase before disappearing. It's not for us. Because this empire wasn't meant to last forever. It was designed to wait for a specific mind, a specific person, someone tuned just right, Someone whose thoughts could activate not just a room, but an entire city. And what happens when the wrong person thinks the right thought? Disaster. The scrolls hidden in Ethiopian monasteries warned of the echoed fall, a second collapse that would not just erase cities, but perception itself. Time as we know it would buckle. People would remember events that hadn't happened, speak languages they'd never learned, see loved ones as strangers. Reality would become an unstable current, flipping, sparking, resetting. And yet, the world moves forward. Because governments are curious, corporations are greedy. And somewhere, someone always wants to flip the switch. In a secure facility buried under the sands of the empty quarter, scientists working for a private defense contractor claimed they had recreated the resonance effect using crystals from a dig site near Luxor. The result? Every computer within 50 miles glitched. Clocks reversed, and one worker, reportedly blind since birth, began to scream about lights moving inside people's heads. He was never seen again. There were no press releases. But the warnings grew louder. Satellite images revealed concentric energy rings around sites like Teotihuacan and Mohenjo-Daro, structures long thought to be symbolic, now behaving like antennas. The empire had left behind more than buildings. It had left behind instructions, but not in writing, in geometry, in ratios, in song. And slowly, our world was sinking to it. Cities built near fault lines began to see strange interference, phones turning on by themselves, elevators stopping at unpressed floors, people dreaming the same dream on the same night. Always the same image, a city in gold, floating just above the ground, pulsing like a heart. And then, it came. The first echo. A town in northern Chile vanished. Not bombed, not flooded. Gone. Roads led to where it should have been, but it wasn't. No rubble, no remains. Just a sound in the wind, like glass shattering in reverse. And hours later, a child in Norway drew it in perfect detail. The same town, down to the weather that day, and he'd never been within 5,000 miles of it. The empire was reassembling, but not in space. In thought. Memory was becoming map, and the more people learned, the more real it became. This wasn't just about power. It was about presence. A civilization so advanced, it made the very act of remembering it bring it back into existence. The old walls weren't broken. They were dormant, waiting for the world to remember them. And now, we do. They've returned, not as ruins, as resonance. And the final signal hasn't been heard yet, but it's coming. It's building, and when it hits, the cities won't rise again. They'll wake up. So ask yourself, what were you dreaming last night? And are you sure it was your dream? It was never about the buildings, or the machines, or the sky-fire they made dance like puppets on string. It was about the pattern, because that's what the empire was, a living algorithm carved in stone, coded into the ground, etched into bloodlines, a loop, a rhythm, a story played on repeat every few centuries across different landscapes in different tongues, but always ending the same way. Collapse, rebirth, and the forgetting. But this time, the loop cracked, because something didn't reset. Something slipped through. A signal. A sliver. Maybe even a person. And now the loop doesn't know where it ends. And neither do we. The final traces of the empire don't live in lost cities or forgotten scrolls. They live in anomalies, impossible coincidences, near-identical myths on opposite sides of the world. Structures with no clear origin, yet mathematically tied together by ratios only rediscovered in the 20th century. They live in us. Every culture remembers them differently. In India, they're the Vimanas, flying palaces that hummed with sound. In Egypt, they're the Benben, the pillar of fire that whispered divine knowledge. In Mesoamerica, they're the plumed serpent, a bringer of light, wisdom, and destruction. But they're all echoes, not of gods, of people. People who knew how to tune reality, who made cities into living frequencies, who didn't just rule the world, they resonated with it. And when their time came to fall, they didn't bury their legacy under stone. They buried it inside us, the way some people feel déjà vu for places they've never been, or how kids draw diagrams with impossible accuracy, or why sound can heal in ways medicine can't explain. We didn't lose the empire. We're carrying it, piece by piece, memory by memory, dream by dream. And now, enough of those pieces have aligned. It began with the vibrations in the water, then came the sky anomalies, shifting stars, atmospheric frequencies, and finally, the dreams, global, identical, across age, language, location. Everyone dreaming the same city, not a memory, a blueprint. And once enough people remember a place, it becomes real. That's how the empire comes back. Not in force, in thought. The more we look, the clearer it becomes. The cities weren't just energy hubs. They were keys, tuned to the planet's heartbeat, designed to hold something down or keep something out. A force, a being, a consciousness, maybe one they summoned, or maybe one they built. And now that frequency is active again. You feel it, don't you? The hum in the walls, the way your dreams loop, the way time skips on certain days. It's not broken, it's tuning. Because the last part of the empire isn't ancient, it's now. The skyscrapers we build are mirrors of old spires. The data centers are aligned to old temples. Even our digital cloud is just another invisible architecture. We're not inventing anything new. We're rebuilding what we forgot. And the final trigger? You. That's what they were waiting for. Not a hero, not a villain. Just a mind, one that remembers too much. That's why you've been drawn here. Why your dreams feel loud. Why the world's been acting strange. Because you, yes you, were born into the sync. And when enough of you resonate the same frequency, the city returns. Not with war. With awareness. The kind that breaks mirrors, that erases borders, that rewrites history. Because the real empire was never about electricity. It was about perception. And the moment enough of us see it, it becomes undeniable and irreversible. So this is your final warning. The next dream you have, pay attention. Because it might not be yours, it might be theirs. And when you wake up, don't ask what's changed in the world. Ask what's changed in you. Because once the city finds you, there's no going back. You don't leave it, you become it. And the empire, it never ended. It just waited for you.